How we doing today, class? Hope we're all having a good night and a good end of the semester. And with the holidays around the corner, hope we all have a great break. And this is going to be my final presentation for Ethnic Studies 1, done by yours truly, Caden Martin, on December 18th, 2024. Let's get into it. So, for my main ideas for my position paper number 1, I did my identity paper on Native American identity. And we can start way back in time when, Christopher Columbus arrived to the Americas. They were the first people in North America, hence the name Native Americans. And when the Euro Americans intruded and basically outcasted and took them off their rightfully owned land, it spread a lot of disease, it spread plague, it outcasted them from society completely. And before they arrived, they were practicing, oral practices and ceremonies of prayer, which are all huge in their tradition, which makes identity. And this was not in the plan or in the eyes beneficial for the Euro Americans coming into North America to try to modernize it and have more financial gain. So, looking at these key Native American traditions, such as nature, art, I also think of the horse as well, which was big for battle, especially during this era of time with wars and fighting over land in general. It's mainly one of those things where they almost considered it a gift from the heavens, was a quote from one of the films we watched in our modules. But that was very essential for battling and for transportation, and it was also the key in tradition as well as wall art and cave art was huge, and teamwork and ancestral value and family roots. Those are all huge parts of Native American identity that are still here today, but have been since outcasted and continuously so. If we even look at a quote from, more of a more recent quote, I should say, in the Grindy article, actually, taking the Indian out of India. This quote declared that white Americans declared that American Indians had no government, education, or spirituality. So we look at modernized America, and if you don't have a 9 to 5 job, if you don't have um, a household with key values, or you don't have nice things, or you don't have a home or an act in society, or maybe like a religion, so to say, that is apparently one of the things that American Indians have since been outcasted from. It's one of those things where the higher ups in society want to see the American Indians change and want to see them reform to societal norms, which is not how it should be at all in general. We're looking at their traditions and they're sacred to them and have been going for generations and generations. And taking that out of their society and taking their identity away will not happen. It should not happen. They should not have to reform to societal norms like white Americans want them to. And that's just bottom line what it is. It's a huge part of Native American identity. It can't be wiped away, such as living off the land and their tribal slash communal attachment. And there's no way, shape, and form that the values of ancestry and tradition should be taken away whatsoever. When we look at my position paper number 2, I did it on Asian American belonging. And interesting enough, the largest groups that came here was for the gold rush back in the day, such as like the Chinese, Japanese, South Asians. They all migrated to the Americas in large quantities because of also the Transcontinental Railroad, which brought up a lot of labor opportunities and basically more of a financial gain for these Asian Americans coming for more labor, so for more pay and for more financial gain. It made sense with new beginnings. So upon arrival, there seemed to be almost a discriminative aspect, and they were looked at as outsiders or foreigners and found themselves facing lots of legal and social exclusion, stereotyping, discrimination, as well as violent backlash. We think of violent backlash in the podcast from our modules, the non-United States of Asian America. It was stated that the Vincent Chin case, for example, because of the competed automobile industries between American and Japanese automobiles, just because of Vincent Chin's race, even though he was an Asian American and a US born citizen, was killed because of his race and his ethnicity at the time. We think of legal and social exclusion, such as think of the Immigration Act, the Immigration Policy of 1924, or the 9066 Act for World War II. Basically, shipping away thousands of U.S. born citizens of the Asian American community, which was very frowned upon and should not have happened in general. You look at things like our communities today, like in Long Beach, Cambodia town that we learned about. In Cambodia town, you have communities that come from poverty, that are families of refugees from Vietnam that came over and are at a disadvantage compared to the rest of the area. In general, you look at that town in specific, and in that community, you see a lot of gang violence, and there's low high school graduate rates for the Asian American community. It's one of those things where we really do have to have a more inclusive curriculum regarding these communities, and it's more of a better cultural representation and just visibility of what's need to be heard. In general, looking at from the Native American perspective from the slide before, and with the Asian American belonging in our society today. And there's certain steps, it's a work in progress, but there needs to be more social exclusion and cultural representation in our societies. So when we look at the connection between identity and belonging, we often gravitate to the people we belong with, right? So we think of certain similarities, characteristics, maybe certain clubs or activities that have to do with tradition or culture. We tend to gravitate to those people and meet new friends and meet new people when we take part in what makes us who we are. And that's the special or the specific characteristics or routines in our life that we go to, such as for me, it's the gym. Think about it from that perspective. I have a lot of buddies that I've met at the gym that I've built a sense of belonging with when we get in workouts together, or say certain clubs. As a kid, I went to the Boys and Girls Club. We all had different identities, but the same belonging because we were all gravitated towards each other. And identity is made up of different goals, characteristics, cultures, viewpoints, maybe from the way you were brought up. Most often, that's what it is. It's the tradition and the family that you've grown up in, or the ways you've learned to go about your way in the world. And oops, that was an accident right there. But the embracement of these identity qualities is basically what dictates what we're gravitated to and what we belong to. So belonging happens when people accept you for who you are, right? In society, whether that's a different ethnicity or a different viewpoint, a different culture. And it's accepting your identity and the roots in which it was formed in which you're able to have fun times together, and you're able to go to certain events or activities that you both agree with and identify with. And that's what creates identity and belonging, and the connection between them. Now, why is ethnic studies so important, must we say? In general, when we grew up in a certain tradition or we grew up with a certain way of life, it's hard for us to see all the different perspectives that are going around for us. And often we don't even learn about our own ancestry, but let alone the ancestry of other ethnic groups and cultures that may have just totally gone over our head when we hear certain things. There's certain things that we don't notice because we're not involved or we're not knowledgeable on that topic, which is why ethnic studies is such a great course in general, to be able to gain knowledge on what's going on around us and what reparations need to be made and changes, and not only informs us about our identity and belonging in society and the identity of others and belonging, but also helps us embrace our own. For example, I think of from the Rethinking Ethnic Studies book, There were so many chapters and so many stories of teachers being able to ask questions to their students regarding their culture and ethnicity, and most had no clue about it. But through these practices and oral traditions and class lectures that these teachers would give, they really helped the youth and these kids really find their sense of belonging and know how their ancestors built this life for them. And that's huge, especially in society and especially with the youth, to really know the roots on where, your tradition is and where it stands. And overall, we have the free will to act accordingly, but it's something that we all need to have knowledge on. And just gives a better perspective for me in general on what to stand for with, diverse community, obviously, different ethnicities, and to be able to embrace not only my own, but embrace everybody else's. And that's what it is. Like, different traditions in general cannot be changed to meet anybody else's criteria. It all needs to be embraced, and we all overall have to learn about and have good insight about other cultures for deeper understanding, and accept traditions that are they're different from our own. And that's why ethnic studies is so important, is because we all gain that comprehensive level of outside traditions and outside importance. And I just like to thank you all for listening today. This is my reference page and my works cited, but I hope you all have a great break and happy holidays.